Hello, you wonderful little giblets, you. Commissar Bro here today with another mod spotlight video. Now, normally I don't go back and look at mods that have already done, but in this particular case, the pressure was on, and I decided to do a second and final video about this particular mod. This mod is called the Alternate World mod, and I apologize if I pronounce your name wrong, but it is by Connor Langile1. You can find it right now on the Steam Workshop, and yeah, good stuff like that. So let's talk about what this mod exactly does. Well, it starts off in 1914, that's right. And like most mods in Making History of the Great War, it is kind of an alternative history mod, adding in nations that don't exist at a particular time. And that kind of stuff. I guess a really good way to kind of look at this one is it adds a lot of modern countries into the game. For example, as we see here, we have Kuwait, we have Saudi Arabia, Iraq, we have Eritrea, Abyssinia, Djibouti, but the amusement park Republic of Djibouti, and Israel. Just as a small little example there of just some of the countries that currently exist. But, as you know, I like to talk about all the additions that have been made, and so we're going to try to take a look at the big one, shall we? Something big that's happened is essentially Luxembourg, the Netherlands, and Belgium have all been combined together into the Benelux. Let's see, what else we got? We got Poland. We have Scandinavia, which is essentially Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, and you guessed it, Greenland and Iceland as well. You probably didn't guess that, but there it is. They are their own countries. That's right. It's one giant country, which is actually kind of a terrifying little country, to say the least. It's got the 6th most powerful military, the 5th in industry, 9th in research, and 6th in influence. Plus, it has a really nifty flag. Yes, it does. Some other new countries that you can see in the Alternate World mod is Ukraine, Belarus, Crimea, and Kosovo. Yeah, that's an interesting one to add in. Kosovo, Montenegro, and the Kingdom of Serbia. Yeah, those are Kingdom of Serbia is already there. Let's see, what else do we have? We have the state of Munger, which essentially takes over, what is this, Vladivostok. It takes over, like, Vladivostok in this whole area. It takes over the island of Karafuto, or Sakhalin, depending on what you know it as. You've also got Hokkaido, which has been created into its own power. You've got a North and a South Korea. You have Taiwan, and the actual Republic of China. What else do you have? You've got the Union of Southeast Asia, the Republic of Borneo, Indonesia, the Philippines, Mindanao, I guess that's how you pronounce that, Hartogia, the Catalan Darwin colony, the Ukrainian Brisbane colony, the Bulgarian Adelaide colony, Russian Australia, regular just Australia, based out of Melbourne, the Karelian Canberra colony, and Tasmania. So, as you can see, Australia is one of the countries that have been split up, interestingly enough. I don't really know how I feel about that. I mean, that's cool and all, but I would kind of make this a little bit more interesting of a conflict, a more decisive of a conflict. Maybe add a city or so. But anyway, we'll get into the things that I would do to change the scenario in a little bit. We've also got Papua New Guinea, and let's see, New Zealand. Well, New Zealand's already in the game. You've got some additional Pacific islands and Ceylon, yes. We won't go into those. A big change is the whole North American continent. That's right. You've got Alaska. You've got the Yukon. You've got Cascadia, the prairies. You've got Manitoba. You've got the Great Lakes Republic. You've got Baffin, Quebec, the Dominion of Newfoundland, the Maritime Republic, New England. We got to do the Great Lakes. You have Virginia, which is this whole area. You have Tennessee, which is this whole area. You have New Africa, which is made up of South Carolina, Georgia, and Louisiana. Just that whole area there. So I mean that's so Alabama and you know this whole area, Mississippi and all that. So fun stuff. Not Louisiana because Louisiana's right there. But anyway, I know my states, right? Anyway, Florida, which is Scandinavian Florida, and I might think that's a bit racist. I don't know about that. And then you've got Batabano, you've got Guacanayabo, Nicolas. What else do we have? Good Christ, Hispaniola, the United States of Central America, Zapatista, Texas. Deseret, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. And did I say South Cascadia? I don't think I did. So yes, those are the big changes. There's probably some more here or there, like the Rio Grande do Sul. There's probably some new stuff here or there, fun stuff. But let's talk about... Oh yeah, and I forgot, there's some Western African places as well, like Cayor. Liberia is gigantic. And yeah, Cameroon, the Islamic Republic of Libya, and so on. There's a bunch of new countries, yes, so keep that in mind. What would I add in personally? Well, let's start with Australia. Actually, let's start with Djibouti. Djibouti is an interesting country to play as. I played a bit as Djibouti myself, because, I mean, come on, it's fucking Djibouti. Of course I'm going to play it. And I managed to easily take Eritrea. I went to war against the Sultanate of Darfur. And that's about as far as I got. I fought against the Sultanate of Darfur. Things were going swell at first, but very, very quickly started to turn against me. And the reason this is because there's no way to expand. As Djibouti, and the limitations of the... making history, and I won't really call this limitations, I mean this makes sense, is manpower. You don't have enough manpower to build up massive armies. But unfortunately, this isn't a game like, let's say, a Total War game where you can hire mercenaries and so forth, so you are very much limited by the manpower in your area. In this particular case, because Abyssinia is so powerful and has so much manpower, basically this is really where all the manpower in the area is. Djibouti stands no chance, and which is realistic. But I mean, if you want to play around a little bit as a small country like that, truly they don't get the opportunity to do that. You'll be able to expand into Eritrea, and like I said, you'll probably run into the same problem I ran into, where I couldn't quite beat the Sultanate of Darfur and was defeated, unfortunately. So yeah, I mean, well, actually they didn't beat me. What beat me was Abyssinia got pissed off and declared war and attacked me from behind. So that's really what beat me. But it was still interesting enough to start out. Basically what I would do is, first off, like all those other problems I mentioned, and then you add in the fact that some nations in this game don't, or in this particular mod, don't have any research at all, except for something as simplistic as subsistence colony or economy, which if you look there and how much you have to research just to get to like infantry weapons 1, look at that. That's crazy. That pretty much sets it up to where there's, in no realistic time frame of a game, are you going to be able to pick Djibouti and do anything with them. Which I understand if that's, you know, your plan, and that's perfectly okay. Your choice. It's realistic that Djibouti would not be a major power in the world, but if you just want someone to have a little bit of fun with a small country, that's something you should definitely consider. Even if they want to play as Eritrea or Qatar or Qatar, however you pronounce that, or Kuwait, any tiny little countries like that don't really stand a chance against anybody in this game because of the limitation of manpower. Even Iraq can't really build many. Well, I guess it can build a couple of divisions here or there. But in a greater war against like the Ottoman Empire or against a European power, there stands no chance. Look at even let's take a look at Kosovo. Kosovo is a single state little country we have here, but they still at least have 5 manpower. Montenegro the same, 5 manpower. The Principality of Albania, 5 manpower, 4 manpower, so 9 manpower in all. Basically, that's 9 times the amount of troops than you can get from Djibouti. If we look at Eritrea and Djibouti, if you combine them together, you still only have about 4 manpower, which only equals 4 divisions. So that's something I would change personally. I would, just to make it more fun, or to make it, I guess playing as these smaller countries, it would just make it a bit more fun. I don't want to say give them more startup troops. I mean, you could do that. But I think that takes away from some of the challenges playing as a small country. Like, I understand by saying add more manpower, that takes away some of the challenge, but there's a difference between taking away challenge and just making the game a little bit more fun to play as a small country. So yes, keep that in mind, definitely. And you may even consider adjusting values all over the world, because there's, what the fuck, why, look at the manpower here, 53, that's crazy, what? Anyway, so, yeah, and see, like, these are actually this would probably be a fun little country to play as, Caucasia. The only problem is you could probably take out Armenia and take out Azerbaijan, maybe go, well, with that manpower that you would get out of Kura-Aras, you would be able to take over all of Persia and all of Iraq and Kuwait. And assuming you don't piss off too many people, you could even go to war with Saudi Arabia. You could really unite that whole area very, very easily, just by starting as one of these countries up here and fighting against your opponents, because like their army's not that big. Well, I guess it's that's a pretty decent sized army there in Azerbaijan, or in Caucasia. So yeah, I guess you could. And then even then, the Armenians could actually move out and take over Azerbaijan in the east, and that would be a springboard for them to take over the Caucasia, and even so on and so forth. So that would be interesting, just throwing that out there if anyone was actually interested in possibly doing something like that. But, as I was saying, the previous point, definitely add more manpower. I know Africa is a little small on manpower throughout the entire continent, and it may be a pain in the ass to sit here and click on each one and change the manpower value of each one. But what you could do is you could just click on the capitals of each region, each state, as it were, and increase it to just a bit higher of a number. It's unrealistic, maybe, but it always adds a bit more fun to the game. If you ask me, it means more units, more battle, so on and so forth. There's more challenges that arise with bigger armies, so it just makes the game a bit more interesting. And like I said, you could pretty much do this with any country, especially in the Middle East. Once again, populations are incredibly low. Countries in the Middle East and Africa don't really get much to do, and that's sad. Because it would be fun to play as one of those countries when everybody else is playing as, you know, Germany. Like, look at this, 100 manpower, then you go over here, 9 manpower, 111. Like, no one lives in Alsace-Lorraine. They're like, fuck Alsace-Lorraine, I don't want to be there. But anyway, just throwing that out there, that's something you can improve. Oh, and I forgot to actually mention England, or the United Kingdom area, including Ireland. There's also some new countries here, Leinster, Munster, Ulster. We've got Strathclyde. No, Strathclyde's under Scandinavia. I didn't realize that. You've got Cornwall, and then you've actually got the United Kingdom itself. So something interesting you could do with the United Kingdom is you could arguably take over Cornwall and proceed to take over Ireland, or someone playing as Ireland could take over the entire island for themselves. And because of that massive amount of manpower they have, like, that is a raunchy amount of manpower. That's clearly been edited. All that manpower they're packing here on the Isles, the Green Isle, could most certainly be used in a greater war, maybe against Portugal. Well, Portugal's got some serious manpower itself here in Beira and Estramunda. Yeah, so that could be interesting. That could be interesting indeed. Then you got the Rock of Gibraltar. Interesting. Yeah, they look like they've got a nice coast of fortifications, of food, paved roads, good stuff. So, those are the major changes I would make. It looks like you could have an interesting conflict in the United States here. I probably wouldn't change too much here. Yeah, pretty much. Not really. Maybe add some troops to like Tennessee, because an aggressive player is the very first thing they're going to do is they're going to go take over Tennessee. So what I would do is I would actually give the various factions of the United States more troops. Giving them more troops could make a little bit more interesting of a conflict that would arise. I mean, it is 1914, so because it's 1914, it's not unreasonable to believe that each one of these new countries in the United States or the North American region has standing armies of some sort. It's not unreasonable. Tensions, I imagine, are rising, and especially with how divided the states are, there must be an incredible amount of infighting going on. So with all the infighting and border conflicts occurring throughout the United States, having large armies to fight amongst each other does not seem like it would be completely out of the question. So just throwing that out there, that might be something else you might want to consider doing. What else? I mean, that's kind of the big stuff. Oh, and like Australia. So this is the last thing I'll hit on because I'm probably like 15-20 minutes at this point. I'm just rambling. But anyway, so Australia. I love the idea of a divided Australia fighting amongst itself because Australia is typically ignored in these games, which is a shame because, you know, Australia is a big country, a big continent, and as such, and especially in this game, it has plenty of territory that can be fought, or you could see interesting conflicts arise from. I might even consider suggesting that you divide up Australia a bit more. Maybe divide up Hartoja a bit, just a bit. Maybe like this will be the dividing line, and that could be like a whole new country right there. Or maybe you could make like this area here and then this area here could be two new countries, and then you add in new cities, like add in a couple cities. Like I would assume that each one of these deserves at least one extra city. Like here we see the Ukrainian Brisbane colony. Now of course Australia is sparsely populated, but it could be interesting if you added a new city like here in Cape York or Carpentaria, and then add in some additional population so that the armies that form out of the fighting are much stronger. Thus, not only are you making it a bit more difficult for people who are considering playing as one of these countries in Australia, but it could just make some more interesting conflicts. It could make for a pretty cool multiplayer scenario too, just one focusing purely on the conflicts in Australia. I mean, that right there seems like it could be an incredibly interesting mod where people fight for control of Australia, fight for control of the outback, as it were. So I mean, that's my piece on that. Like I said, I would increase manpower. I would add at least one more city to each one of these countries. I would even consider adding in 2 more countries to further kind of divide up the country to create a more of a, just to make it a more of an interesting scenario, a shattered states scenario, as it were. I think that would be pretty cool. But that's just my opinion. Of course, this is entirely just like simplistic criticism that you can take it or you can leave it. But I think, you know, there's ways you can definitely improve the mod. But from what I can tell, it looks pretty good. There's a couple spelling errors here or there, but I haven't run into any glitches in my time playing. Just a couple of balancing things that that you might be able to change just to make the game a bit more fun. But anyway, this has been Commissar Bro. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Remember, this is the alternate world mod, and if you're interested in checking it out, it is available on the Steam Workshop right now, and I will post a link in the description so that if anyone is interested in trying the mod out, they most certainly can. And with that, this has been CB, and I'll see you next time.